Internet, Hiboson here. Good to see you back again this week. What I'll be going through this week is I'm going to have a little look at the Prusa i3 printer here from Sunhokey. Regulars here will know probably the trials and tribulations I've had, but I thought what I'll do is, if I've not had time to progress any further with actually using this, I thought I'd do a kind of a roundup of my experience since like purchase through to this point now with this printer, the good and the bad. The workshop is still a mess, so no, I haven't done all the workshop out yet. It is still, as you saw it last week, in the complete tip state that it was then. But I thought I'd just go through it now. I'm sorry if the lighting is a little bit off from what you're used to. I haven't got the light that's here normally thrown a bit here, but hey, that's nothing to do with this. It ain't going to affect what I'm going to be talking about right here. If you are thinking of getting a Sunhokey Prusa i3 or have got one already, you know, if you've got one already, if there's anything that that's happened to you that I'm not going to mention here, whack it in the comments below so others can see and they can get a good idea of what they should come to expect if they get a Prusa i3 from Sunhokey. Now, I'm sure a lot of what I'll say will probably be very representative of many others in this price bracket. Sorry, I'll get my words out in a minute. So it's just a case of now going through and giving you an idea of what's happened with me. I suppose the first place to start would be purchasing. So this one I got from AliExpress in China. Now, I ordered it, that was all fine. The guys over there at the time of ordering were very responsive and very communicative, and they even threw in some extra bits, so I have some extra print heads and what have you around. So everything at the beginning, all great, golden and dandy. It only took a couple of weeks to get here from China, so pretty quick and pretty rapid to come through. Then it arrived, and I've got to admit, the packaging, if you look, I have an unboxing video of exactly when I got it and when I took it out of the box and what have you. The packaging was brilliant. They were really trying to make sure it got to you in one piece. So I will give them a good 9 out of 10 for that. One piece here did have a mine crack, but that was it. Just the one piece out of all of them had a minor crack on arrival. Then came construction. When I started building this, the first thing you need is the instructions. Now, this is the first point where it really started to let itself down. The instructions that they supplied in terms of a PDF was great to a point, then they just seemed to kind of stop. So the instructions kind of came to an end when they got to the electronics section, which for a lot of people, that'll be the area they want the most help on. Now, if you go through everything they supplied on the CD they had there, they had some videos, some images and things like that. Between all of that, you can kind of gather enough information to put it together. But the fact of the matter is, it's like you have to kind of piece together your own instructions before you need to build it, really. And if you start just following the PDF thinking, oh, this will get me all the way to the end, you're going to come to a point where you're going to hit it and you're going to be like, I don't know. So that is one of the things that kind of led me to making my build video series, to try and help people along all the way to the end. I figured it all out, I used all the things, and I could do that. If you're not a very technical person and you really need that kind of walk you through every single step of the way, their instructions are not really going to be in one bundle, you know, like the PDF enough. But I got through that stage, and then I moved on to the actual physical construction. When I started to build it, at first things were going great. All the simple plastic parts, bolting them together, all of that goes together really quite nice and simple. And if you are somebody that's technically inclined, it shouldn't take you long to build this thing up, you know, in less than a day. But as I was building it, there were a few areas that obviously the choice of acrylic kind of shines out as maybe not the ideal material. Well, at least not in this configuration, I feel, at the moment. Because now I've got it all together, when I try and move this, along with the bits I'll come to about the metalwork and that in a minute, when I come to move this, this twists and turns a little bit. It's not like you can build it and it becomes rock solid. So as it wasn't kind of go rock solid in terms of its build, when you move it around, any calibrations or anything you may have done are going to be knocked off kilter. As soon as you start moving it around doing that, that'll happen. So that's one kind of thing that's been a bit of a pain in the butt. Every time I move it around, I know I'm going to have to recalibrate everything. Now, most people, if they're doing lots of good prints and that, they'll recalibrate the bed and everything at the beginning of every time anyway. But sometimes you just want to come out and you're going to just want to bung a print on and go. Now, if you've moved it between then, you know that's not going to be an option. Unless you've managed to do what some have done and literally glue and weld parts of this together. So, one problem I had when building this, being clumsy McClumsy that I am, I managed to snap the part that attaches this bed on under here. It's in one of my build videos. I managed to work a repair around it so that it does work now. So I managed to get by there. These bits here where you screw bolts onto here and they're supposed to be like compression fit onto the bars to stop these bars sliding and these bars sliding are just not good enough, because look, I'll show you. Look, if I move that, you can see that rod is coming up. If I do that, the rod goes, see, look, I've now just disconnected that, and it didn't take a lot of effort. And then I can push that back on, and then I can literally push that screw in. That one's now falling out the bottom. It holds the bottom one in. Push the bottom back now. So as you can see, and I can't really do these up any tighter without risking breaking the acrylic. So this is where I'm saying with this particular design and the way they've done it this way round, I don't think acrylic's the best choice. I know some people manufacture them in wood, and I think wood would be a lot stronger. So I do believe that would be a bonus. Now I understand they have superseded this model since, and they have made changes, so it would be well worth, if somebody has got one of the upgraded versions of these, the newer version, and anything I'm saying has been addressed, please hit it up in the comments below so others can see they have moved forward and rectified that, or let us know if they haven't rectified that and the problem still exists. The next thing that I have found after putting it all together, and I managed to get it all together, like I said, the instructions wavering off at the end, you're then sometimes left trying to figure out the best size bolt for this particular connection here and that. So like I said, instructions are a big in my book. Their instructions are pathetic, and I did contact Sunhokey again and again and again. They keep just saying, tell us what's wrong, and I tried, and then they were like, oh, but it's in the instructions and things like that. Basically, I ended up going in conversational circles with them, and although the guy kept trying to sound like he was trying to help, I'll give him that much. The simple fact of the matter is, all I wanted from them was an instruction manual that was complete, and I never got one. No matter, after about 4 or 5 weeks of constant back and forth, I gave up. I just gave up, and I thought, I'm doing it myself, I'll figure it all out myself. The main reason I wanted to see if they had a full instruction manual, so if they did, and then any of you guys out there needed it, at least I could have put a link, put it somewhere on the internet for you guys to download, but they didn't. So it's not there. Once I've got it kind of built and got it all up and running, one of the first things that I immediately found was just god awful are the axis switches, the axis limiter switches. These are on these little horseshoe things here, and as you can see with this one here, that's how it moves. That's how much that one moves. And I've tried again, tighten that up, and I could probably tighten up a bit more now because it's been on here a little while, so the plastic bit's stretched a bit now. But at the time when I first put that on, it moved just as much. The one of them that's on the back of the Y carriage here, I have actually had to stick a marker behind it, because otherwise when it goes back, the cable on the back of this bed sometimes will get to the limiter switch mount before the bed does, and the cable pushes on the mount, pushes the mount over, and the bed never gets the switch, and it just wants to rally right off the end of the bed, and it gets jammed up and starts twisting the bed, you know, the machine up. Not good. Also, same thing on the X-Travel here. It's obviously, these have only got one switch at one end each, so sometimes when this is going to the positive side here, it can actually impact and go onto there, because with this one here moving as well, as you can see, this is the X one, that just, like I said, they are pathetic. They are absolutely awful, and so far I haven't had this up and running well enough to print my own new design out for them. So although people are saying, oh, it's great, you can print upgrade parts, if you can't get it to the point where you can do that, it's frustrating. That's all I'll say. Also, I know it's a common thing, bulldog clips being used on to hold the glass on the bed, but I have to take the arms off of this one, otherwise when the bed's going backwards and forwards it catches on the frame, and I have to have this out on the edge like that so I can use this maximum bit of print bed. All they needed to do really was supply those really small, like cute little bulldog clips, paper clips, whatever you want to call them. If they'd just supplied you can get even smaller versions, that would have probably helped. So maybe even like 6 of the smaller ones, so you can put them around a bit, spread it out. Now, what I will have to say is, obviously, price point wise, very cheap. This was, you know, under, what was this, under £300, even with Mr. Taxman hitting me on import duty and things like that. This was under £300. So as a kit goes, pretty good, although there are now suppliers in the UK and probably in your own local country if you're US or Canada or whichever country you may be in, France, Germany. I know I've got a few people all over the world. It's a case of look for local, look ideally for one that if you do have a problem and you do have to send something back, or you know, really have to push them if they're in your country and have to follow by your country's trading laws and things like that, you know you have some buyer power. That's just, you know, depending on your own country's trading laws. So my recommendation now would be, in a scenario like this, maybe spending that little bit extra in getting it within your own country. Plus, it doesn't have to do, you're not looking at possible import duty and things like that. So that's something else to consider there. With this type of printer, you need to be somebody who's technically inclined and willing to spend hours upon hours upon hours probably troubleshooting. You might put it together, you might set it up sweet the first time and everything go golden. My first few prints actually kind of went all right. Then I moved it around a few times and then it all went to pot. Now I know some of it's my fault. I need to put things like tape on the bed, and I need to find better adhesion techniques and stuff like that. So I know there's a lot of it that's falling onto me here. The fact that I've not got it further yet. I am fully aware that I am one of the big key faults at the moment with not actually having any prints. So that I am willing to accept. So with these kind of printers, this kind of budget printer, you need to be somebody that I feel is willing to put that extra mile in, basically go through all the pitfalls. Now I know 3D printing, even if you're looking at some of the top end like the Ultimaker V2s, I know Barnacles Nerdgasm, you know, Jerry Berg, he does some great videos with those 3D printers, and even he says it's an art more than a science. You really do have to get your head around 3D printing, and it doesn't matter if you've got a low end one or even one of the higher end ones. They all can have this same adhesion problem, bed lift problem, temperature problems, getting it right. It is a case of what settings might work perfectly for somebody here, like in my workshop. You move it into my house with different temperatures and different drafts and breezes, suddenly I'd have to change a whole bunch of settings to make it work in there. So I know there's a lot of it that falls down onto me not having had the time yet to really pile into this. If though you are somebody that I think needs more of a, I want to take it out the box and just be able to use it, then you are probably going to be looking at some of the pre-made versions. Now, the good thing is there's some pre-made ones now coming in at the 400, 500, 600 kind of pound mark, maybe even cheaper. I've not been researching a lot lately. Since I've had this printer, I've also not been researching what printers are out there. I've got to admit, I do kind of have my eye, and maybe I will splend out at a later date on Multimaker V2. And if I do, I would like to then do videos about budget versus like the high-end consumer, and not just on 3D printers, on some other technologies, things like microphones and other things like that. Things as I progress, and I might decide to invest in the newer tech or the more consumer built, ready to go tech. That's something I'll probably look at later, but right now I'm still trying to figure this one out, and until I get certain distance with this, I'm not going to consider another printer right now. During construction, one thing I did forget to talk about was I did have one of the connectors come break while I was putting together, because I had to swap. I thought I had to swap the cores over on the connector. Then I found out I didn't. Again, this is where the confusion of some of their documentation throws you off, because one bit of documentation is telling you have to swap the cables over, then next thing you find out you don't. So on here, with all of them coming all wired identically on the ends of the stepper motor, I shouldn't have to change any, and I'd hope you probably wouldn't have to change them around either. So be aware of that one. Also, with the instructions being so bad, I had a bunch of parts left over, and I was like, I have no idea what they're for. And it wasn't until I put a shout out on one of my previous videos that my lovely viewers and that hit me up in the comments and things like Twitter, and told me it was actually the parts to make this. These, there's two of these. You roll sits on it and it does that. So it was included, which is kind of cool. You've at least got a starter spool holder. Not the best in the universe from what I've been told, but it does the job. But they didn't even tell me what these parts did and how to put it together. I just had to find out from people online and figure it out myself. So again, another big thumbs down on the instructions front. Also, at the moment, when I am going up and down on the Z-axis, going up's fine, but coming down it makes a bit of a grindy noise. Also, the firmware that comes with this as standard doesn't have things like the ROM enabled. I'm just trying to remember the exact terminology for it on these. So basically, if you do calibrate and figure out all your E-steps and for X, Y, Z and all of that, you'll have to write them down, because as soon as you power this down, it forgets them. There are ways to enable it, but again, that's something you have to go out and find out. And then there's some great videos online. If you search around, you'll find them up. Just type in calculating E-steps and setting up the thing. I think it was Zenmaster M, I think his YouTube name is. Check him out. I'm pretty sure it was one of his videos. He showed you about doing that, and he's got some great videos about his 3D printers and that as well. I will say with these 400, like this was under £300. Everyone I've pretty much spoken to online that's owned one of these has ended up spending more money again on upgrades. So they've bought, most commonly, a new print head, because they've usually said this one is basically tragic and not much use. And they've also done things like, well, printed fan shrouds. Some have upgraded motors, added extra switches and what have you. So changing the gear on the extruder feeder here, because that one skips and what have you. So be aware that you think, oh, under 300 quid and I've got a printer and I can go. Very quickly, you'll probably be wanting to spend 50, 60, 100 pound again, upgrading and what have you. So sometimes if you can wait just a little bit longer, save up a bit more money, it might be worth possibly moving up to a more name brand, something like one of the Maker bots. What are the other names? My brain is forgetting right now. I'm the world's worst memory. Lowell's bot, and all those. There's tons of them out there. Quite frankly, there are tons out there. If you've got one that's different to this and you've found very little problems with it, but it's a good, entry level, then please whack it down in the comments below so others can see. Just tell them what you've got, the good and the bad about it, and then that way other people can see what other choices are out there on the budget end, on the entry level end, for their upcoming 3D printer journey. Anyway, I hope that has been helpful. I hope I haven't blabbered on too long and bored you senseless. I hope that's given everybody a good idea of the kind of trials and tribulations I have had. All in all, I'm still happy I bought it because it's given me a lot of joy and anger and many other emotions too. But I do hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, obviously you know what else to do. You can catch me on Twitter at Hiboson, and I'll see you again next week.